Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. Throughout Year of the Crossover, we've focused mostly on the well-known heroes clashing, but more obscure characters have teamed up over the years, such as in the review we begin today. I'm taking issue with Ghost Batgirl, written by Mike Kennedy, with art by Ryan Benjamin, Michael Blair, Edgar Delgado, and Digital Broom. Let's see if this comic makes us want to turn the page, or turn our heads. Issue number 1's cover features Batgirl, Cassandra Cain, perched on a stone structure. Kind of difficult to tell what type, though, as in front of her with a gun in hand is Ghost, who apparently raided Emma Frost's closet for her outfit, which is obviously pretty salacious. Though at this angle, her hood kind of resembles a nun's habit. I hardly ever paid attention to Dark Horse, so you'll have to forgive my ignorance going forward. I checked Wikipedia, and I know that her powers are intangibility and teleportation, so she has a fitting enough name. Though in terms of her costume design, I'm betting she was created in the 90s. Called it. We open in Gotham, as Batgirl watches the aftermath of an explosion that destroyed half the International Diamond Exchange. Narration by Barbara Gordon, aka Oracle, explains her worry over her young charge and how she will fare against the unexpected. I used to think I was invulnerable at her age, but a bullet in my spine showed me just how wrong I was. My mistake was not expecting it. You should have expected the Joker to show up at your doorstep and shoot you in the spine as part of his elaborate plan to drive your dad insane? Jeez, I hope you don't play the lotto, Babs, otherwise you're going to be beating yourself up 2 to 3 times a week. Two-Face claimed responsibility for the bomb attack, but heck if anyone can find a motive. Nothing was stolen and none of the victims seemed to be worthy as a target for death. As one final body is bagged, we get this panel of a woman dressed in a Vacu-Star rescue uniform, though with blank white eyes, that apparently drives off with a truck full of bodies, to the confusion of one of the legitimate rescue workers. We jump to the city of Arcadia, specifically a strip club called Morpheum.
Coming at you next is the fabulous Dominique. Look out, fellas. This little lady don't take spare change. She gets real mean if the money ain't green.
Legal warning that use of green Monopoly money, Toys R Us Jeffrey dollars, or bill-shaped chocolate bars will get you kicked in the teeth. And here comes Saffron.
In the club's VIP room, some guys are watching a private show, one of whom tells his buddy that the girls they're watching are dead. Got it straight from 3-Ball. These chicks is dead. That's why this room is so secret.
The room is so secret, yet they announce to the customers how they can buy a special membership for access. Makes total sense.
Minor typo that caught my eye. It looks like they put an apostrophe at the end of getting. Like they forgot they wanted to leave out that second G at the end. From this close-up of a young woman, we go to a missing persons flyer, implying they're the same girl. Specifically, the daughter of Gotham Councilman Fletcher, worried that she's either dead or captured by Two-Face, and takes little consolation in Bruce Wayne's optimistic words while they're all at a fancy gala. The girl was seen in the Diamond Exchange when the bomb went off 4 days prior, but there's been no sign of Kendall Fletcher or 5 other bodies since, alive or dead. Bruce excuses himself to talk to Barbara Gordon as Cass walks off briefly. Despite her concern for finding the girl, he wants her to stay out of this, as Two-Face is Batman's responsibility and is enough of a madman to be behind the disappearances despite Oracle's doubts. If he needs help finding Harvey Dent, he'll let her know. If this were a matter of Bruce not wanting Cassie to deal with someone as dangerous as Harvey this early in her career, I could understand that. But Batman's responsibility? If Robin or Nightwing caught him trying to hold up the Second National Bank, does he expect them to just ring his cell and wait for the Dark Knight to arrive? Or what if Harvey feels like taking a road trip to another city? Central City, for example. Does Bruce think the Flash is going to sit still? What's that, Superman?
Two-Face has the Daily Planet hostage? Don't do anything. I'll be in Metropolis by bat plane in 2 hours. Well, because there's taxiing, there's clearance for takeoff, the in-flight movie.
Meanwhile, the aforementioned criminal, seen only from his clean side this whole page, is having a relaxing poker game with his goons, apparently more chipper since the senseless bombing he instrumented. He doesn't even really care when he loses a hand, he even congratulates the winner. When one of his men says people likely think they took the missing bodies, Dent confirms that they can think what they want. Dead bodies aren't of interest to him. An inebriated lackey named Carver accidentally bumps the table and causes Harvey's, I'm gonna say, wine to spill, and the former DA responds by shooting him. Tossed out amongst the garbage by his former cohorts, the last thing Carver sees as everything goes black is a pair of shadows in front of a car's headlights.
Man, those dumpster divers are in for a big surprise.
At the Neptune Modeling Agency in Arcadia, Leo Marino is scouting a young woman for a job, encouraging her to disrobe when Ghost appears. She's looking for a girl named Debbie Scoggins, though that tiny picture looks a lot like that of Kendall Fletcher. He's shown an ad for the agency clipped from the paper found in a journal, I guess belonging to the missing girl, but insists he doesn't know the name. Unconvinced, Ghost checks out his date book while he hangs out the window without his pants. Standard detective work, if you ask me. Her narration explains that she'd have just killed him a year back, but at the time she was operating under memories that were more or less a 3-layer cake of deception, manipulated much like the missing Debbie was into denigrating herself for a sleazy talent agency. She takes the information and leaves Leo alive, as he may prove useful later, but seems to hope otherwise, feeling he deserves to die. While waiting for a call from Batman she knows isn't on its way, Barbara did some digging on her own, finding that the privately funded relief group EvacuStar, based out of Arcadia, had listed every single body as being dropped off at St. Mary's Hospital. But somewhere in the confusion, 5 people turned up missing.
Don't you mean 6? Because earlier you said Kendall was missing as well as 5 other bodies? So either I'm reading that wrong somehow, or you're so ticked off at Batman trying to sideline you that you've forgotten how to do math.
Babs is friends with the admissions clerk at that hospital and knows that she would not have lost 5 bodies like that, so it's time for a little trip to Arcadia. In a mysterious location, Carver wakes up on a slab in a room with 3 other people, one of whom is a maybe doctor that looks like a corpse himself, and told that he's benefited from a revolutionary discovery and got his tonsils removed too.
The move to the ABC network made the final season of Scrubs really weird.
The maybe medic goes on about the Roman belief in the Lethe, a crystal blue river the dead would cross and drink from as they entered the paradise of Elysium to forget their mortal troubles. But if they got reincarnated, they'd cross and drink from it again to forget their previous holy bliss. Carver is injected with a blue fluid and asked if his last memory was more indicative of living or dying.
Well, I was alive until my drunken slight got me shot to death, so... both?
2 pages after saying they'd go, Babs and Cass are at an EvacuStar office in Arcadia, helped by a Mr. Brimler under the guise of Miss Barberry requesting an audit for the Gotham Paraplegic Association. He assures them that theirs is a non-profit organization with nothing to hide. Cassandra's keen eyes watch him punch in his password, which they later use in their hotel room. Sure, Cassie's method is pretty amateurish, but remember, she might recognize the keys being pressed, but she's still illiterate at this point. Barbara accesses their system with ease, though it does take her some time to follow the necessary trail. From the non-profit EvacuStar to Devlin Media Group, which produces adult videos as well as controlling interest in nightclubs, to the Morpheum, which we saw earlier. As it happens, one of the off-site club managers is Dennis Brimler, the oh-so-well-to-do looking fellow they met earlier.
A revelation that makes Babs's face look like she's about to sneeze, cry, and vomit all at once. I guess they're trying to display her disgust at a guy that came off all kindly and helpful, but she looks more like she's angrily sick than sickly angry. And there's the distinction there, trust me.
Later that night, Cass is staking out the morphium when she sees Ghost phase her way inside, apparently unnoticed by employees and clientele alike. And we get this charming panel of a dirtbag ordering a girl not to walk away from him. Regardless of the woman's occupation, he really is a jerk, and I hope he gets a solid punch in the face. It's about then that Batgirl busts in. I don't know who the leather-clad waif is, but she's got a lot of guts bringing trouble in here without a gun.
She don't know her too well, do she? Well, obviously not. She just said so.
Something I found a bit surprising is that when Ghost starts opening fire, B-Girl doesn't seem to do much to stop her. Cass is all about no killing, and you'd think she'd want to limit such potential fatalities, even if the spectral vigilante is going for flesh wounds. Anywho, Ghost narrates that she's uncertain if she's helping out of trust or fear, given how powerful this girl is, but senses that they're on the same side. Good Lord. I'm not sure what Ghost is reacting to. Maybe the fact that some people are still indulging in debauchery despite the ruckus. Batgirl drives them off by kicking apart the stripper pole, letting out what I think is either a standard kung fu yell or a really awkward and stretched out "now," as in get out now. And Ghost can detect her youth as well as her commanding power. She finds Debbie Scoggins as Batgirl helps another girl off the floor, voiceless but expressing enough moral outrage that together they may be able to find out what is truly going on. After the issue ends, we get a page summarizing the histories of the title characters, though there are portions of Batgirl's bio that seem a bit off, but part of that may have been because Cassie and her solo title were pretty new at the time.
See, they actually took time to grow the character organically and compellingly over time. Begone, unholy blights! Anyway, we've been set up with a curious mystery thus far, involving missing, exploited young women and the undead prancing around for the sad and creepy. It is a tad curious how quickly the two heroines decided to work together, though. You could argue that Cass could read Ghost's body language that she didn't have any lethal intent, but Ghost herself didn't hesitate to accept Batgirl. Is that part of her applying more logic than instinct again?
Issue 2's cover is a bit more stylized, kind of resembling a poster for a spy movie. Ghost in the background with her gun at the ready, B-Girl in the foreground launching an attack, and between them, two commando-looking silhouettes, and Oracle looking like she was asked a really stupid question. Who unkilled Kendall Fletcher?
Okay, that probably wasn't the stupid question, because as stupid as it sounds outside the context, with this story it holds some merit.
Dennis Bremler approaches his car after another shift at Evecustar when he's confronted by our star heroines, one of whom, for all her disgust at the exploitation she's seen thus far, doesn't seem very subtle about where she expects Denny to look. Ghost demands information, including details on the sedated women they rescued from his club. Bremler, however, insists his involvement was legal, no one was forced to do anything, and whatever the girls do outside the club isn't his responsibility. After being asked about Kendall Fletcher being found drugged out of her mind in his establishment, the guy goes from looking like he's huffed too much paint thinner to appearing to be in a trance, saying he's not involved in day-to-day bookings and hasn't been to the club in weeks. The pair leave and are later in a hospital room with Kendall and her father. Ghost, in her civilian identity as Elisa Cameron, lies and says she found the girl in a less than coherent state at a bus station, staring at her own missing persons poster, then brought here. She leaves with Barbara and Cassandra, but seems to object to the idea of them as a team, since Bremler was a dead end. It's explained that Ghost followed Batgirl to their hotel room, only allowing her to do so because she trusts her, and thus Oracle does as well.
And if Oracle trusts her, Nightwing trusts her. And if Nightwing trusts her, Robin trusts her. And if Robin trusts her, Batman... Still doesn't trust her. He's just not a people person.
Against the advice of the guy that revived him, Carver is returning to Gotham for some unfinished business, but promises to be back since he's taken a liking to the plans of Dr. Greymatter. It could be Greymater, but I'm gonna go with Greymatter because brains. He advises his associate Chris to tail Carver and make sure he doesn't damage their already delicate situation. In Gotham, Two-Face is talking with a doctor about his recent depression, his medication and doses thereof, hesitant to try a new combination, since what he's been taking keeps his darker half asleep. When one of his goons passes by, saying he thought he heard the crime lord crying, he gets a bullet for his concern. Dent begins stammering afterwards, apparently now in a forgetful haze after the murder, and continues the discussion about his antidepressant meds.
Yeah, he's shot 2 guys dead at the drop of a hat, but it still looks like the Trilithon is working better for him than Zoloft ever did for me.
As she waits alongside Batgirl on a rooftop, Ghost wonders if this alleged trust she's been given can be returned, as they seem to have gathered a lot of info on her, but she knows very little about them. What that information is, we don't know. She's also perplexed by how this teenage girl that can so easily break a man in two is the same bashful one gently handing her a spider. A car pulls up and Leo Marino exits with a pair of bodyguards, so the two descend, Ghost facing Batgirl on their way, and likens the teenager's actions to that of a conversation she prefers to keep brief. Ghost takes out the other bodyguard by phasing his gun into his fingers. I mean, it took me a second to realize it because it's such a small picture, but ouch! They show him Kendall's missing poster, and he recognizes her as a runaway addicted to heroin. But since she was a legal adult, he didn't think twice about putting her to work at the Morpheum's back room. His apathy is getting them nowhere, so Ghost leads them to Cassandra.
Here's a test to see how skilled Cassie truly is. Break the guy's foot by punching him in the face. If it doesn't work the first time, try again.
Leo suddenly becomes more amiable, and his eyes oddly more relaxed, saying they should look where she was last seen to find out what brought her to him in the first place. They'll do that, but Ghost warns that she may not be so reasonable upon their next meeting. When the women leave, Leo makes a call to a Mr. G.
Wayne Gretzky?
Two-Face's hideout, some of his goons are aiming their guns at a bird on the TV for some reason, wondering where their buddy Pete is. Harvey plays it cool, but then the surprise that he's probably dead in the trash is spoiled by someone with experience in that area.
Carver! You wear a beret now?
Maybe you should look in the garbage pile, Freddy.
Pete has suffered a fate worse than death. He starred in the Garbage Pail Kids movie.
While Dent seems more or less unfazed by this revelation, the recently undeceased says he's with a gang that hasn't quite gone public yet, but doesn't get you shot by your boss and offers the others a chance to join too. It's such a tough decision, Harv decides to flip a coin. That comes up scarred. He opens fire, shooting Carver at least 4 times at the offense of trying to recruit his goons from him. But he proves more tenacious than most corpses. On a page where the dialogue is unusually large in typeface, Dent hesitates on a headshot while a motorcycle rides up, collects Carver, and drives off. Freddy, get me an eye in the sky.
I'd like to, boss. Really, I would. But since your whole motif insists on half of everything being burned, those carrier pigeons just don't fly very well anymore.
At the hotel, Oracle retrieves unaltered original dispatch records from EvacuStar's archive servers, discovering the driver of the van sent to the Diamond Exchange site, Nelson Potter. We jump to his 2-bedroom apartment in Arcadia, something Ghost's narration considers a bit modest for someone possibly taking money under the table. He's visited by the co-worker that stranded him at the beginning of the story, forcing him to bus back from Gotham. She promises it won't happen again, removing her hat and revealing snakes for hair. She proceeds to cut Nelson's throat as Ghost and Batgirl phase through the window, and from the dialogue it seems this shapeshifter named Trixie has a bit of a history with the white sort of clad heroine. Shedding the uniform, the villainess escapes through an elevator, narrated to have switched from using bombs to knives, which seems to make sense to Elisa, since this started with a bomb in Gotham. It's almost like she's insinuating Trixie had something to do with the explosion, even though Two-Face publicly owned up to it. You'd think her new allies would have mentioned something about that. On the word of a pedestrian, Ghost heads upwards, until going back, thinking Trixie took on the form of the innocent grocery-toting tenant. Batgirl stops her with a commanding word, realizing that anger had clouded her judgment, and the comic ends with Trixie watching from just above the elevator, blending into the darkened walls. Then we get short bios on Malcolm Graymatter and Two-Face.
And that's where we leave the review for now. The story's moved along pretty well so far, if with a couple of told rather than shown moments, but they're not so jarring just because we missed Ghost tracking Batgirl back to a hotel room. And Elisa Cameron's observations of our teen crime fighter feels a lot more thoughtful than some other stories I could name.
I thought the art was more or less fine, sometimes a little oversexed, but given the places we go in this story, it's at least understandable. However, there were moments where characters just really looked unpleasant or weird. One page has Barbara looking like she's on the verge of tears or vomiting. Another has Cassie's head shaped like an Advil gel cap. Then here, where Elisa Cameron looks like she's been beaten with an ugly stick after being awake for 2 days. And did the artist somehow get the impression that Cassie was Native American? That might explain her unusually darker complexion and this top she wore in the hospital, which feels very much inspired by that culture. Reminder, Cassie is half Chinese, half Caucasian. And no, this doesn't count. It never counts.
Urge to kill rising.
Some of the dialogue and narration text were larger in some places than in others, particularly in issue 2, perhaps to fill some otherwise empty space. And then there's this page where Babs reveals the unmodified records. The outlines look so jagged it's almost like it was originally drawn smaller, then resized to something larger in Photoshop.
Then you have the curiosity of Two-Face and his depression. They could have pretty easily just let him go as a catalyst for one more body to be used in Graymatter's experimentations. But it seems he's going to play a much larger role. Will that work out in the end? Tune in next week when we look over the final half of the series. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.